want to thank you for joining us for today's session, Compass Games Live. This is actually episode number 14. You would think after a while I'd get better at this, so I'll keep trying best I can. Good to see Tim Allen on Facebook Live and Jonathan as well. So I'll be following, again, Facebook live stream. Please post your questions or comments on Facebook Live. I see Michael just joined as well. People are dropping in right now. There's about a 20-second delay on Facebook, but I'll try to get to your questions or comments. And then for those on the webcast stream, obviously you'll have better audio. You should have better audio and much better video quality. There will be a Q&A button as well as a chat button. And I'll get alerted if you want to just submit any questions immediately. So thanks again for joining. It's been 2 weeks since we last spoke, since our last session, and I'll try to do a better job of keeping track of which month I'm actually in. I think I said August last time instead of September, so obviously we're in September here. And what I'd like to do is give a quick update on our schedule. So I'm going to share the screen to give you a quick update on what's happening with updates in terms of Compass Games. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we should be sharing the screen now. And what you'll see is the front page for the Compass site. I want to just basically go through what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through a few quick updates as far as our schedule, our pipeline. And then as truth to advertising, we have a new pre-order announcement that's going to be coming. So I'll be very excited to cover that later tonight and then take any general questions you have as well. So looking forward to covering a lot. So let's take a look at our schedule right now. Let me go ahead and just hide this one little screen, which we don't need. So there we go. We're all set. And I'll make this a little bit bigger so we can see it well. So there we go. So a quick update since we last spoke. We were just on the heels of Lebensraum shipping. Lebensraum, the War for Europe. It's a great new game. That is a new addition from Steven Newberg's Simulations Canada. We posted the rules as well about 2 weeks ago for those that want to check out the rules online. So Lebensraum has been shipping for about 2 weeks. And also, we most recently began shipping Commands and Colors. It's actually the French and More expansion for Commands and Colors that began shipping, and people were starting to receive it last week. So on the recent releases section, actually these top two most items have just recently shipped. And then again, the Command and Colors Tricorn expansion, that's the French and More, where we had the French units to the game. We had a bunch of scenarios, some of the major battles that the French were engaged in as well. So that's just a quick update on our recent two releases. So now if we shift over to the left side of the column, let's take a look at the upcoming titles. So a few things we have here. So we have, for the upcoming month of October, which is just about a week away, less than a week away, we have 3 things scheduled for release. We have on the same date, October 15th, we have Paper Wars, issue 90, and Europe in Turmoil, Prelude to the Great War, so prior to World War I. And then we have end of October, right on Halloween, we have the War for the Union designer edition. That's from Rob Bama. He's actually the same designer as a previous game we recently had, which was the World War I game, Empires and Alliances. So again, we have another Rob Bama design. It was originally published by Clash of Arms, so that's going to be coming out end of the month. I actually have the cover for, I want to show you quickly the cover we have for Paper Wars. So again, Paper Wars is going to be begin shipping on October 15th, and want to just really just spotlight the game that's included in Paper Wars. It's going to be MacArthur, The Road to Bataan. So that is a new edition of the Jack Green design, which appeared in Wargamer magazine back in the 80s. So again, nice little game. If you check out the comments on the forum or Board Game Geek, you'll see some good comments about the game, interesting campaign, and we'll have an all-new edition that will be hitting in a little more than 2 weeks from now. So again, that's the front cover for Paper Wars, and we're excited to be able to get it out shortly. So what I'd like to do next is, now that we've talked about the month of October, so we've got Paper Wars, Europe in Turmoil, War for the Union. You'll see we've got also scheduled 2 releases for November and then 2 for December, all available, of course, already for pre-order. and we'll get into those games as we get closer to their release dates. But what I'd like to do now is actually I'd like to just spend a moment before we get into the brand new pre-order announcement for tonight. I'd actually like to revisit some of our recent pre-orders. So if you look at this section, which is starting to get larger because we have a lot of pre-orders we're going to be announcing ahead of our catalog. I believe the catalog is going to be shipping next week. So we added several new items already to our pre-order list. We have Colonialism Expanded 2nd edition. That was actually our Kickstarter that we did. It's a Euro game. It's our first Euro game. It's a new edition. It's a 2nd edition expanded with some new cards for Colonialism. So we have that page up now. It's the most recent one we've added to our pre-order list. But what I'd like to actually do now is I'm going to invite our first special guest for this evening. So let's get right to it. So I'm going to actually stop my screen sharing just for a second. I don't want to be rude to our guest. So there we go. So I see you. Hello, Adam. How are you doing?
Hey, John. I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Good. Really good, thanks. So I want to thanks for being able to join us tonight on Compass Games Live. So we'll see if we have some questions coming from folks here. I promised you I wouldn't keep you too long. I know you've got a beautiful young daughter you're attending to tonight. So I'm not going to keep you away from dad duties too long.
Well, you've been there.
Great. So what I'd like to do is let's jump right in. So we have two recent pre-order titles we announced in the last month, and I'm going to go ahead, since we introduced you, I'm going to turn back on the screen sharing so I can show those pages now. So let's start first. Let's go to World War II first. That's always a nice little place to start. So maybe you can share with us a little bit about this project, the CSS Company Scale System, the Little Land, and I can't pronounce that town. I'm going to let you do it.
Yeah, I always like to try and get you to pronounce my names. That's one of the things I enjoy about these interviews. Anyway, yeah, I named it the Little Land, so you wouldn't have to spell NOVOROSSIYSK.
Thank you.
Or pronounce it, for that matter. And this is a game on Black Sea Black Death, Jack Rady's old games, on the same side, the same topic. That was a charming game for me, so I'm really happy I can do sort of a new look at it. I'm very much looking forward to it. It's got a small paradrop. It's got sea invasions. It's got a large offensive. It's a really interesting situation. 2-mapper.
So yeah, 2-mapper. I see the 2 maps and 6 counter sheets. Is that right?
Is it 6? Yeah.
Could change. I'm sure it could change because you're probably still working.
Well, it's relatively close to final, but you got tanks in it and all that. You don't have the big headline tanks. You're talking like T-70s and SP guns for the Germans. But yeah, I actually sort of like playing with those less than superior tanks. I think it adds a lot. And I will try desperately, and I'm still working on it, to give an homage to Jack Rady with his paradrop rule and do something similar.
Wonderful. So paradrops, wonderful.
I'm measuring. It's 2 feet, 3 feet.
Yeah.
Not sure exactly how far yet. But.
Okay, and then can you talk about the volume series? As this says, it's volume 1 of the Nemesis series. Can you talk a little bit about the series?
Yeah, Eastern Front games is what this is the first of Eastern Front games. I had been for years asked to do a company level Eastern Front game, so I'm finally able to do one with CSS, and I'm real happy to be able to do that. It adds things like commissars, and it changes. If you're not familiar with the system, it uses dispatch points and direct commands in order to evaluate how different armies command. Dispatch points represents planning, while direct commands sort of represent initiative. So the Russians will be planning heavy all the way. Germany, of course, will still be pretty prone to initiative. So it'll illustrate the sort of differences in the two armies and how they operate to probably a greater degree than you've seen so far.
What made you pick this battle for the first volume? Was there anything that drove you towards it?
Well, as I said, I've always been charmed by the Jack Rady game. It's one of my favorite games from my childhood. So I looked at it. I recently played it, in fact, and saw how the scale was perfect for me. And when I look at a CSS battle, I'm looking for a particular time period and a particular size. Like do the bowl to be like 32 maps.
Yeah, 32 maps. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have measured it. But so it measured out really nicely for 2 maps. And actually very important is how long it lasts and how high that it lasts for sort of high tempo operations. So it works out perfectly for the system.
Okay, great.
I have another designer, an amateur designer, I guess his first design, looking at Borodino in 1941.
Oh, Borodino, 1941. I think I recall now. Let me. Am I going to get this wrong? Was it a Clash of Arms title called Borodino 41?
I think it was Clash of Arms. I know there was a game
Yeah.
on and so I wanted to sort of, it wasn't a game that was horribly well received. So I wanted to do sort of a game on that situation and give like an early war situation that contrasts with this as mid-war, and do like a later war one as well fairly soon.
And this is with a new designer, you said, or somebody you're working with for the first time?
Yeah,
Is that correct?
I mean, he's doing some work on it. He's actually very motivated, and working within the framework of CSS. Which, by the way, and I was asked just today about doing a Spanish Civil War game. If you got a battle you'd really be interested in, CSS is wide open to that, and I'm happy to help people to put it together and figure out how to get the source material, how to do the OB work, and how to integrate it into the system. And it's a good when you have a sort of set series, it makes it a lot easier for like a new designer to have these sort of controls to work with.
So that's great news. So that's interesting. So that's a question I had was, do you like working or having the chance to work with new designers to help, maybe perhaps that means more titles or builds the pipeline, or you can guide designers on your system and your series and then help shape the final product. And that's probably good for everybody. They get more games or more battles that way.
Well, definitely. And it's the Borodino is a fellow who always wanted to do the battle. So his chance to get it the way he wants to get it too. So yeah, no, I deeply encourage people to do that. And if you got a battle you want to do, give me a contact. And
okay, wonderful. And they know where to find you, so that's no problem at all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the other pre-order title for the same game system, not series, but same game system, company scale system. In the meantime, just a heads up, if anybody has any questions for Adam, we're just going to have him on for just about 5 more minutes, not too long tonight. So please feel free to pop any questions you have for Adam in the chat, whether it's Facebook or on the webcast, and I'll be happy to throw them Adam's way. Yeah, let's talk about something that really got a lot of attention when it was first posted on social media. I know Facebook blew up when we announced Volume 1 of Modern War. So I don't want to steal the thunder, since again this one really sort of spread like a wildfire. So I'll let you introduce this new Modern War series. Could you tell us a little bit about FULDA?
Well, no, I'm happy to. Amusingly, I have a CSS Facebook page, which anyone's welcome to join.
Oh, wonderful. I'll have to link to it from our page. I'll add it on.
I should get that to you. But yeah, it was started by someone. And what was interesting is I held a survey to see what people would like to for me to look at publishing next year. So one of them I put on there. I knew I was doing FULDA. I put HOFGAP on there. And HOFGAP got very few votes. It was rather amusing, actually. So when I put up FULDA, I was like, well, I'm not sure how people receive it. And, a lot of people are really motivated to see what's going on.
Yeah, they were all excited. Everybody was really excited and talking about how the system would adjust to this era, but the scale, excited about the scale and the other games in the series you were talking about. So definitely a lot of attention about FULDA. I think everybody's really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm almost certainly going to do HOFGAP rather next year.
HOFGAP, okay.
And the other two in the NATO Warsaw Pact line are North German planes and a Berlin game. And they would each cover sort of the pivotal thrust by the Russians.
Okay.
The map coverage is maybe
4 maps. We've got 4 maps here. I was scrolling down here because I thought this was the bigger of the two. 4 maps and 8 counter sheets, it says.
Yeah, well, it's got 8 counter sheets because it's got so much extra stuff. You have your nuclear weapons and your commandos and all that stuff. So a lot of it is the additional rules that are going to come with porting CSS to 1985. But the heart of the system will still be the same. You'll still activate. I'm going to port over the Commissar rule, maybe a little bit more modernized from Novorossiysk. So you'll still get that. Oh, okay. And, for example, the system changes will be minor. If you know CSS, you'll know that one side of the counter is in column and the other side's in line. I'm going to switch it to one side is mobile and the other side would be NBC outfit, outfitted in NBC, and the degradation of combat capability that goes with that, because, the game will have a lot of nukes going off and chemicals being used and all that stuff. So you'll be fighting an NBC, and you know what that does to your you know, your combat capability will be represented on the counter. But those kind of minor changes you'll see in the system.
Okay. Well, that sounds exciting.
Action advantage satellites and stuff.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I think everybody's excited about the series, and I'm glad you mentioned too, as a series designer, that you would consider if somebody's really motivated to help them with any other battles that you might not be able to get to, that you'd be able to assist them, and maybe that helps, you know, keep the series get more of a pipeline going. So hopefully there's some motivated people out there that might be interested, and I'm glad to hear about this one gentleman and about the Borodino topic as well. So that sounds real exciting. So Adam, before I let you go, I want to throw some questions at you, if I may, from our audience, if that's okay. So I'll stop sharing here just for a moment. And I always feel it's nice to get away from the screen so we can see a little better. So I've got 2 questions for you so far. So it's great. You know, we've got some people on here. Definitely want to talk with you and hear what you have to say. So the first question came in from Martin Svensson, and he's wanted to see if there was an updated status on Vietnam.
Oh, Vietnam, very excited about that. That's my next project coming in. Tinian, by the way, is almost completely off. It's right in the final stages. The next coming up is Vietnam. And I have a major playtest tomorrow, and if it all goes well, then it goes into production. So fingers crossed for that. Very excited about that game, and can't wait to see what people think. I think it'll be a very different treatment than what you've seen in Vietnam, or what you've seen in other Vietnam games. And
great.
I can't wait to think.
All right, well, that's we'll keep our fingers crossed as far as how your big playtest goes this weekend. And
well, I won't delay it much.
Report, post a report on Facebook or on social media for us to let us know how it went.
If it goes well, I will. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, actually, I've got somebody joining us. I'm just gonna give me one moment, and there we go. Okay, so next question is from John Alson. So John has a non-company scale system question. The nerve. How can John do that?
Oh, OSS. I'm pretty proud of OSS.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine what this question is going to be? It's a non-CSS question. So here we go. Now you're on the hot seat. You ready?
Yep.
So Adam, what is the status of the updated fire and ice rules? Oh, you know that one was coming. That's a zinger. How's that?
Oh, no. I'm actually pretty much done with them. I'm using them as my framework to write the Vietnam rules.
Oh, okay.
They're done. I'm just going to sort of read through them as I write the Vietnam rules up. So they're pretty much done. If John wants like a copy in Word, I can send it to him. Just haven't said.
Okay. All right, John. Also,
a lot of people are playing and enjoying Korea.
Copy of the rules. If you want to preview them, what do you think? Is that good? Maybe John will give me a thumbs up on that. So that sounds like a nice offer. So thanks for offering that, Adam, to John Nelson. Yeah, he says yes. He gave you a big thumbs up on that.
Yeah, and a lot of people are playing with it with the living rules and having a great time. So
okay.
I'd love to hear what John says. If he reads it, I can still use any feedback you'd like to give me.
Okay, well, you're very busy with Compass. It's always great to have you on. I think this is at least the second time I've had you on, and always introducing a bunch of titles when we have you on. So it's always very exciting, and we've got a lot with CSS, but you've got all these other things going on, and we've got Tinian coming out. I know with Ross Mortel is involved in that with you as well. And,
right, if I may, 2 plugs, Ross Mortel.
Yes, please give 2 plugs before I let you escape.
Right, Ross Mortel, good friend of mine. Combat.
Could be 5 minutes, Pam, or so.
Have a look at that. He just you still there, John?
Yeah, sorry about that. Just had a little interference. Go ahead, try again there. We had a little interference, but I hear you.
Playtesters loved it, and Ross just wrote up another AAR, which he loves doing, and posted it today. A great game. Look at it. I'm very proud of that. And also, War for the Union is by my good friend Antonio Pinar. He did the artwork for it. He's done the artwork for all my CSS games. Yeah. Most people think they look great. So have a look at that. I want those 2 plugs.
Those are 2 great plugs. So Adam, I want to thank you again. And just to let you know, for those that are participating in the live stream tonight, again, I want to thank you for being here live. We had some great questions for Adam already, which I really appreciate. Just to let you know, it is not part of tonight's live stream. But when I post the edited HD version of this broadcast, we will be, per Adam's plug, we will be including an interview with Ross Mortel, who is the designer of the new combat game that is now announced on pre-order. So again, just a reminder, when I post by tomorrow, the edited HD recording of this broadcast number 14. I am going to actually follow up this discussion with Adam, and we're going to segue right into the interview with Ross Mortel about the combat game that he's working on.
I hope you're nice to him. He's very tall.
He's very tall. There you go. I couldn't tell from we have him on webcam, so I promise we're gonna get to see him up close. So
be nice to him. He's very tall.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you again, Adam, and it was a pleasure talking to you. And we'll be sure to check in with you again soon.
Thank you, John. You have a great one.
Have a good one. Bye bye. So that was real good to have Adam Starkweather give us an update on 2 of the pre-orders. And as I mentioned, as part of our broadcast for number 14, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to segue to the interview with Ross Mortel for combat. So what I need to do is I'm going to pause here for a moment, and we'll begin that interview. And then I'll come right back with the live broadcast where we'll pick it up to continue with our items that we're going to cover tonight. So let's go over to Ross Mortel. Hello, everybody. I'm really pleased that we have a designer that's joining us today. Specifically, we have Ross Mortel, who's joining us from the United Kingdom. How are you doing today, Ross?
Fine, thank you, John. How are you?
Good, and thanks for your flexible schedule. Obviously, when we do the Compass Games live broadcasts, we usually do them in the evening Central Time, and I know European time that would put you in the early morning hours, and I don't want to put you through any special punishment. I think it's bad enough that you're having to deal with me today, so we'll keep it there. So we're doing it during daylight hours, and again, I appreciate you being flexible with your schedule today.
And thank you for changing.
Sure thing. So what I'd like to do by way of introduction is in our last broadcast, we actually mentioned several new pre-orders from Compass Games. One of those is Combat, the solitaire man-to-man combat in the 20th century, which is your design. And we're going to be talking about that today to provide more background on this pre-order title. But first, what I'd like to ask you is, can you share with the viewers how you came into game design and how that happened, I believe, with Adam Starkweather and your Marianas campaign? I'm actually going to show the Tinian pre-order title that's coming up. I believe this is your 3rd design. But yeah, it's volume 3 of the Marianas campaign, and you've done Saipan and Guam. So if you could share with the viewers how you came into game design and any experiences you wish to share.
Okay. Well, I've been designing games personally for about 20 years, but just for my own pleasure, really. And then I got into an online conversation with Adam Starkweather.
Mm-hmm.
We just changed the tune in. Yeah. And we found we had a lot of common in terms of designing games. And I started work on, originally Saipan was the first of the Marianas trilogy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Saipan, yeah.
Saipan.
And those were larger games, I believe. Was Saipan the first release, volume 1 for you?
Yes, Saipan was the 2-mapper.
How was that experience for you being, I guess, would you say that's your first published design then, Saipan?
Yes, it is, yes.
How was that? Was there any learning curve, or was Adam helpful? What was any takeaways from the very first time? Because we probably have some people here that are probably considering, maybe I'd like to design one day, or wonder what your experience was like.
Yes, very nervous, but Adam has been great.
Wonderful.
He points me in the right directions, and so yeah, the first one was definitely a learning curve.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we moved forward, obviously, with Guam and now Tinian.
Yeah, and Tinian I'm showing here. I didn't have my screen sharing on earlier when I first started, so I just turned it on so people can see. We have Tinian here, and earlier when I was speaking, I was talking about our release schedule, and we had recently announced, which is the 4th game listed down here, which is Combat, the solitaire man-to-man combat in the 20th century. So this is now quite a shift for you. So you're going from a multi-volume game series, which is the Marianas campaign, which I'm showing here, to a brand new system, which is Combat. I'm going to turn off sharing just for a moment so we can just chat a little bit about Combat before I show that page again. So let me go ahead and stop sharing. And could you just share with us briefly just what brought on this brand new game design for you, Combat?
Well, I've always been primarily a solitaire gamer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Possibly because I'm too antisocial
I'm probably there's a lot of people that play, even the two players are played solitaire, or they got Vassal out, multiple games going out. So so you were looking to create something, and just to let you know, I've followed comments when we did announce combat in our last broadcast, and I got a bunch of questions, a lot of interest in this new series, in this new game from you, which looks to promise to be a game series that it focuses on the 20th century. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about combat, since I know there's a lot of interest. And the first question I want to ask you about it is, it mentions in the title itself, it's combat in the man-to-man solitaire game in the 20th century. So the obvious question is this going to be covering one-day future titles other than World War II battles?
Hopefully. Once I had the system in place, the AI for the enemy, I soon realized it can be used for World War II. I'd love to do Vietnam.
Vietnam?
I think it would be very suited to searching villages, defending fire bases, and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be done, to be honest, with anything. You can throw zombies in there, cowboys and Indians.
Zombies, there you go. You even get the sci-fi edge going, right?
You get the zombies in there, yeah.
Exactly. Well, okay, so another comment, which is a fair comment I think a lot of people make, they say, okay, Compass Games, is this the Compass answer to Ambush by Victory Games, which was very popular? So that's a typical response we get, is they try to understand, okay, where's this game system coming from? What's it like? What's it similar to? So I see a lot of comments about, oh, is this like Ambush updated? So could you sort of address if there's other games that have been published? Is this close to anything that's been published in the past that will help players get an idea of what this game plays like?
I think the similarity with Ambush is mentioned because they're both man-to-man,
right,
and solitaire, and I'm not really aware of any other man-to-man solitaire games that have come out. Yes, I played Ambush. I love Ambush.
Mm-hmm.
I was always slightly frustrated that it was difficult to play the scenarios through more than once. My memory's quite good in that aspect, and I remember don't go in that hex and don't turn that.
So you remember, you remember, oh, okay, no, I'm not supposed to do this based on past play experience. So that means you must be telling me then that yours is different in that regard, that this is a response to, you want to have more limited intelligence, where things can't be so predictable for repeated gameplay. Is that correct?
Yes, I have more random events, but also the enemies are chosen at random, so they can vary each game. So one game you might be facing a bunch of recruits, but the next game they're coming at you with veteran soldiers and machine guns.
Great, great. Well, let me do this. I'm going to share my screen again because I do want to show quickly to the audience. I want to show them the write-up that we have for the game. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go back to now we're looking at the game page, pre-order page. And again, we're just updating the front cover art so that we'll have a front cover here shortly. So again, mentions it's 20th century. So with the promise of covering perhaps other situations other than World War II. So I'm gonna jump right into the next question or comment that we do get from people since we announced. And they notice here that there's 4 full-size game maps. And given, Ross, that there's 4 maps, we get a lot of questions about, oh, is this going to be playable with all 4 maps you have to have out at once? Do they link up, or how are they different? Are they geomorphic maps, or could you explain to us like what we have in terms of scenario coverage, how many maps are needed from one to say all, and how the maps are actually situated? Are they geomorphic, or is it one historical set piece battle? Could you sort of walk us through the 4 game maps that you have in this box?
Yep, no problem. The 4 maps I've got in this box are the village, the farmhouse, the hedgerows, and the hill. So that gives me 4 locations. They're semi-geomorphic, if that makes sense. In certain combinations, they will line up and be adjacent. All the scenarios in this box use pretty much one map. One of them uses half of one map and half of another, joined together.
Okay.
There are 4 introductory scenarios, and they all use a portion of the map, either half a map or less. But the main 10 scenarios are generally a single map, because I'm aware I struggle putting 4 maps down. Having said that, there is no reason why you can't just add maps together and create your own scenarios and use 2 maps or 3.
Yeah. Okay.
They're sort of interchangeable in that way.
So is there any scenarios that would use more than one map that's coming out of the box, or are they all limited to maybe one map or less?
They're all one map or less at the moment, but I say I've got ideas and plans for.
Okay.
One map is plenty.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that was maybe the concern. Like, I think some of the people were asking, oh, I'm a little concerned. Like, okay, so it's a monster game. I need 4 maps to do this. Yeah, maybe there's always the customary intro, smaller scenario thrown in, but it looks like this is like a 4-map game. So you basically dispelled that myth. You've been very clear that it's really a series of 1-map games based on these 4 locales. Based on each map has its own locale, as you mentioned. And that's the focus of the game. And okay, maybe there'll be like a second map joining at some point or something like that as an option. But as it is today, they're single map or a portion of a single map to date.
Yes. So I hope to add scenarios that will use more maps, but.
Okay, perfect. So what I want to do is I want to let everybody know that's viewing here, we're looking at the product page right now on the Compass website for the pre-order. And there is a section called Rules, Errata, and Downloads. And I'm going to be adding a link to this tab if you come here. That's going to basically bring up a link to this after action report. So I think this is the best thing we have out available. It's wonderful. It's a very detailed, it's 51 pages that walks anybody through exactly, what the playtest components look like, playtest maps. Again, none of this is final artwork. It's all going to artwork starting this month, actually. So here we see all the pre-production, here we see some playtest components. So here's something interesting. It looks like we have some game cards. So can you explain how there's game cards in this game? How many are there and how are they used?
Okay, there are 2 decks of cards, one friendly and one enemy.
Okay.
The friendly cards you draw into a hand. In the case on the screen, you have 3 cards.
Okay.
And the main thing to be aware of there are the initiative values for the 3 teams that make up your squad, Abel, Baker, and Charlie.
Okay.
And the lower the number, the quicker they will go on each part of the turn. So you'll get to fire first, move first, and so forth.
Okay. And how deep does this example go through? It looks like, again, it's over 50 pages. It's got, it's just lots of illustrations, which is wonderful that you can really follow. It looks like this is more of a tutorial. Is this really to introduce people to the system and how the system works?
Yes, this one just talks through pretty much the first few turns of a game. I've actually got one which I'm working on at the moment where I explain a little more detailed how the artillery works, how the firing works, how melee works, which I hope to have out in the next few days. So.
Okay. Well, great. Well, this is a wonderful. Again, I'm going to post this on the Compass website again under the Combat pre-order page under the Rules tab. So I'll have that. This will be available at time of airing of this segment, so people can go there right away to the Combat pre-order page, and they'll find the link there. So I just wanted to end with one final question for you about Combat. Again, there's a lot of interest. I think this is really hitting a sweet spot for people that, to be honest, as you say, Ambush comes to mind from Victory Games. We'd have to go back, at least in my opinion, gosh, I think I'm going back to the 70s or so with SPI when they did Sniper. I think Sniper was maybe World War II individual combat. I know there was a third world publisher that did a game as well. I can't even remember the title. Maybe even been called Combat. I can't remember, but I know there was another man-to-man game. But again, it was from a smaller publisher back in the 70s, 80s. So again, not much information about that. So I think there's a really big interest about a promise of a game series that's man-to-man combat. Looks like it's using cards as well. A lot of variability, like you said, where things won't be predictable, where the enemy changes all the time in the composition of forces. So we're getting a lot of interest in this game and what the series, what the promise of the series is. And that's why I want to ask you a last question. People are going to want to know what is it, that one thing that you think people are going to like most about this game, this new game system you've designed, and maybe that's coming from your play testers, or maybe it's coming from what your gut feel tells you about what the most popular aspect of this game will be. And I was wondering if you could help predict for us, what do you think people are going to like the most about this game when they get it?
I believe that when you play a game to tell a story, in a 2-player game, that's the experience you share with a friend. In a solo game, the game has to generate the story. You have to have those moments where, remember when Private so-and-so did this, or when this happened. a lot of the playtesters are saying that the narrative is very strong. There are lots of moments where, you know, there's close misses or somebody does something heroic. You just get those little story moments, and I think then hopefully the narrative comes across, because that's what I'm trying to.
Well, that sounds great. And actually, we have several games and projects I've worked on where it's all about the narrative, because it is solitaire. So I've worked with Gregory Smith, and we've done the Hunter's game system. Most recently from Compass, we had Ian Cooper do Raiders of the Deep, which was taking the Hunter system to World War I for U-boat warfare. And then most recently, we just released last month Night Fighter Ace, which is doing extremely well. Again, and as Greg would tell me, it's all about the play narrative. It's a solitaire game. It's all about the narrative of the game. So hearing you say that, I think will be a big thumbs up from people, because that's really what drives the popularity of the other series games I mentioned by Gregory Smith, that they really drive a strong narrative during play.
You create a story of your submarine or squad or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. So this is wonderful. So again, just to recap, so we've got a new game on pre-order. It's again combat, man-to-man, solitaire game covering 20th century, starting with World War II. We've answered a bunch of questions. We talked about, okay, there's 4 maps, but really all the scenarios are typically 1 map or less. So that answers that question. It's not necessarily like Ambush and Victory games. It's different, where things won't be as predictive. You know, you have a lot more variability built in, more around the play narrative as well. And I think that after action report that I'll be posting to, which people can read, will probably help in that regard as well. And no, it sounds terrific. So again, we have a lot of interest in this, and I look forward to, as the artwork becomes available. I know artwork is starting very soon. We already sort of started the front cover, and we'll post the front cover once we get the final version as well very soon on our website. So I think people are really excited about what you're doing here, but don't give up on Mariana's campaign. You still got Tinian and probably other ideas in store. So we don't want to take you away completely from that company scale system, right?
No, I should be mixing and matching.
Mixing and matching, that's perfect. Well, Ross Mortel, I want to thank you for joining us today. I think this was a wonderful high-level overview of combat, and hope we can have you on a future segment when we get closer to publication, perhaps. We can also share with everybody some of the pre-production artwork as we go to press, and I think that would be a good time to have you back.
That's great. Thank you for having me, John.
Great, and good luck with Tinian. I know people are anticipating that release coming up shortly, so we're excited about that as well.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye, combat.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, we're back. And again, for the edited HD version, we've had a nice interview with Ross Mortel speaking about the combat game. We're excited to have him on, and I hope you enjoyed that interview that we made available on our edited HD version. As I promised, we're going to be covering a new pre-order item tonight. So with that, I want to introduce somebody now. So I'm going to go ahead and ask him to start his video. So in a moment, we'll have a special guest joining us tonight live for the first time. And we'll just give him a moment to start up his video. So we'll just give it a moment and see how quick. There he is. All right. How are you doing, Dennis? Can you hear me okay? I'm not sure I'm getting any volume for you. I think you're, let me make sure. Okay, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. That was my fault. I think the mute didn't come off. So everybody, I'd like to take this moment. It's a pleasure to introduce you all to Dennis Bishop. A lot of you might know Dennis already. He's done a lot of designs. He's done over 20 designs. If you check out, for example, his designer credits on Board Game Geek, he's done a lot of great stuff. And Dennis, what I really admire about you is you've really picked some interesting topics as published designs in the past. And we're going to talk about a brand new pre-order item tonight. This is part of our unveiling tonight, which I'm really excited about. As I get that page ready, before I can do the big announcement, the big unveil, could you let us know about any recent design that you're most proud of while I get the web page ready to share with everybody? Any past published design you want to talk about?
I have kind of a special spot for Diguello at Dawn, the Battle of the Alamo, simply because no one has ever really addressed the Texians in the order of battle that they fought.
Mm-hmm.
for the methodology of the Mexicans who assaulted that fortress. And I've also got kind of a real soft spot for like lions they fought.
Lions they
The
fought, like
Angles
lions
of
they
the
fought.
War.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are a couple that I really like.
Great. Well, listen, I'm gonna invite everybody who's online live, if they want to ask any questions of you, to please fire away. Let me check, make sure there's no Q&A right now that's come through. I think we're all good on the live questions I see, and I'll look if there's any questions. I don't see any questions on Facebook Live for you yet, but I'm going to keep an eye on it. So what I'd like to do without further ado is I'd like to introduce the new pre-order title, which of course you are. Not too much of a mystery is left anymore. I think they would assume you are the designer of the game that we're going to be announcing, right? I think that sort of goes hand in hand, right?
Yep.
So I'm pleased to announce here, we'll sort of blow it up a little bit. So we have, so hopefully everybody sees this okay. We have SCHUTZTRUPPE. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. I'm very bad at pronunciations. Can you pronounce the subtitle for me?
Yes, Hiya Safari.
Hiya Safari.
Yes, it means, hey, Safari, or hey, let's go.
So is that a battle cry, I take it?
It was the cry that the German officers gave to the askari in the mornings when they were ready to march.
Okay, great. Well, we've got this, as you can see now, we do have the front cover basically done already. We've already begun pre-production. I'm going to show a preview of the map in a moment. Can you give a quick overview of the game? I'll mention quickly, this is based, maybe you could share with us, I think we talked earlier about you were really happy with the find. You've got a copy of the Jim Bumpus original game, and that was a special moment for you. Can you share a little bit about SCHUTZTRUPPE for us and your history with the game?
Sure. When I was younger in 1968, Life magazine published a photograph of some askari going into the brush. I was captured by the idea because there were no books. There was nothing but this one picture. And later, Sibley published his Valentine book, Tanganyika Gorilla. And it was from that book that Jim Bumpus created the original SCHUTZTRUPPE. And when I found it, it became one of my favorite games. In fact, the only game I've ever bet money on winning.
Well, that's great. And then my apologies to the viewers. I thought I had screen sharing turned on earlier. So now I am showing the front cover. Everybody can now see the front cover for this new pre-order item, SCHUTZTRUPPE HEIA SAFARI, 1914 through 1918. So yes, German East Africa, very popular. I think of maybe more obscure, but definitely a very popular topic. Can you tell us a little bit, since Jim Bumpus did the classic game, and that's from my project standpoint, I really wanted to see a game of this topic done. So could you share with us a little bit, and obviously there's a product description. I'll go to the product page. We have a nice description of the game here, which I'm scrolling through, but rather than have people look at some text on a screen, could you give us a high-level overview of what this new edition is about? It's not a reprint, obviously. Maybe you could share with how this game compares to the SCHUTZTRUPPE, the original design by Jim Bumpus.
Yeah. When Jim Bumpus published SCHUTZTRUPPE, he was working off of really only one book, that Sibley Valentine book. And as far as he knew, the whole war was fought on the map that he had made. And when he got to the end of the 1916 scenario, he didn't know what to do because the Germans either were off the map completely or they were in a very confined area. And so what I have done is I've made a map based on the 1905 topographical map done by the Germans on the colony, and then went into Portugal and Uganda and part of the Congo and the East African Protectorate, which at that time was British East Africa. And Jim had a limited order of battle. He wasn't quite sure which units came in when or why they came in.
Okay.
And what I've done is I've gone back and located some primary sources which I've been able to use in order to recreate the actual orders of battle for all of the armies that were involved, the British, the South Africans, the Rhodesians, the Portuguese, the Belgians, the Indians, and of course the Africans who fought in this campaign against the German Askari. I kept many of Bumpus's rules that I think gave flavor to the war, and he did understand the flavor of the war. The Germans have units which can retreat before combat. That's shared with both games. Jim had left out the naval combat, and I was able to include that. Jim wasn't really too well versed on the military organization of the British Army, and this is a much more detailed order of battle. He had abstracted the logistics, and I have not only the carrier corps, but also the trucks and vans which were used to transport supplies to the troops.
Yeah.
And also the armored trains that were involved.
Yeah.
As well as the possibility of land and sea raiders.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say about your design. So obviously, and I think it's real. What's interesting to point out, I'm going to go to the actual text here, is I just want to highlight an area, because when you read it, it sounds like, oh my gosh, this must be a really complex game. If you read those closing paragraph, I cover basically the special rules that encompass, they incorporate the original plus all the details you've added, but the total body of the rules, the word count isn't that great. So literally, some of these special rules just take up maybe a paragraph or two at most. But if you look at all the special rules in terms of just capturing the flavor of the battle, you not only do you have a much improved, based on the new sources that you were able to consult, you've got a much richer order of battle to really help with the simulation value of the game. But we've got weather effects, supply and supply depots, replacements, provisional reinforcements, rail movement, naval transport, naval battle. So you got naval game, amphibious assault, aircraft, blockade runners, garrisons, German retreat movement, Allied ambush, infiltration, land and naval reaction, artillery bombardment. I gotta breathe. I gotta take a breath. But what I want everybody to understand here, this is not at all a complex game. This is not a dense set of rules. Like I just talked to Adam Starkweather. I talked to Ross Mortel, which will be in the recorded version. You know, this is not a lot of pages of rules here, but you I guess part of your craftsmanship is you're able to add all this flavor of these. Yes, there are rules covering this, but you're able to do that in a very small footprint with not a lot of, there's not a lot of text. It's pretty darn straightforward how you've brought it all together in a cohesive package.
Thank you. That was exactly what I was trying to do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then let me mention this. I know Tim Allen is online, and I want to give props to Tim Allen. Tim's done a great job with the front box cover that I showed earlier. This is a working draft of the game map. I do want to mention, again, since the good news here, some more good news for everybody, not only, with the rules being compact, very playable, done in a few hours, very rich play experience to learn the history of the battle, of the operation, but this will be a mounted map. So since this is a single map game, this will be a mounted map board when we ship the product. So I think that's an added bonus that we're going to have a mounted map, a little slightly larger counters. They'll be 9/16 inch. We typically don't do half-inch counters. We try to avoid that because of eyes like mine that are aging and getting bad. So we've got the slightly larger counters that are being worked on. But beautiful job by Tim Allen. I know Tim's done some previous work for he's done some previous work for Compass Games. He's done 1 or 2 titles I'm aware of, but I'm really impressed. Like I said, the box cover, when Tim posted it on social media, I fell in love with this cover. It's so evocative, and I'm just really, really happy and proud to be able to work with you, to work with Tim, bring this Jim Bumpus game back, but really it's really a new edition. We're not calling this really a second edition because of the changes you've made or really the enhancements you've incorporated into this game. That's why we're giving it a separate title, because it really does need to stand on its own as its own design. Although obviously you've taken Jim Bumpus's work as a main motivation, I think.
Yeah, and I was really excited that we could get Tim on board to do the work too.
Yeah, he does a great job. And
yeah.
Well, listen, we're excited, and like I said, Tim's already been working on the artwork, and I'm hoping. I believe the plan is, if I look at the anticipated release date, is going to be the second quarter of next year, and again, that's with the mounted map and everything. So we're really excited. I'm really excited to be able to work with you on this project, and I know it's going to be great. Artwork's great. The subject matter's awesome, I think. And again, the mechanics, and if everybody reads the product pre-order page description, all the rich mechanics, you've sort of woven this story around everything that took place during the campaign, but kept it simple, relatively simple. I think it's going to be a big hit. So thanks again for working with us on this, and we're excited, and we hope we'll have future titles from you down the road as well.
Great. Good talking to you.
Well, take care, Dennis. I appreciate your time today. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and great job so far on SCHUTZTRUPPE. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. So we're going to let Dennis go, and we're just going to come back to video for a moment. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I want to basically just take this moment. I want to thank everybody who's recently joined us. So Tim, again, props to you, Tim, for a great job on this project. Rick Thomas, thanks for, Rick is excited about German East African campaign, World War I. I'm excited too. Thanks for the thumbs up. Good to see Aaron Silverman on as well. Just want to thank everybody for being here. Kev Sharp as well. Good luck with your real estate investment, Kevin, coming up. I saw the post where your son's in college, so congratulations to you and your family for your son being in college, and I know he's doing well. So typically this is where I would leave you, right? Because we've just covered the big pre-order announcement. But I have a little bit of bonus information in store for you tonight, and that is we have 2 more pre-order announcements tonight. So I hope you're not too tired. Can you hang with me for just another 5 or 10 minutes online? I hope you can. And what I'd like to do, as I mentioned in our last broadcast, we have a catalog that's going to be published, probably going to print next week. And it's going to be shipping shortly, and the catalog covers several months of new products, etc., on pre-order. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce to you 2 new pre-order titles, and actually these are both titles and projects that I'm personally working on. So let's go to the first one really quickly, and we'll get right into it. So here we go. So the first title I want to talk about tonight, additional title I want to talk about tonight, is much like African Campaign from John Edwards was my first project for Compass that was released about a year ago, Designer Signature Edition. And again, as a reminder, we have this brand that I focus on, Designer Signature Edition, which is sort of a supersized version, all new components. We try to basically make everything better as best we can. And we look at classic games that have been published before, and we try to make them better, which, by the way, doesn't mean we try to change them. It might be that we just honor the game, get all the errata taken care of, all the problems that we're aware of from people like you that post online on Console World, on Board Game Geek. We check all our references, etc. So the story of this game is it's another John Edwards design. It's sort of Russian campaign goes to the Western Front for the invasion period. I think everybody's familiar with Fortress Europa, the Avalon Hill version especially, which came after the Jedco release. And so we're doing a Designer Signature Edition release of this game. So I've got some information here. You'll find it now on the pre-order page that's available here. It's going to be about a map and a half, in terms of size. And you know what? I wasn't sharing the screen, so I gotta keep remembering to share my screen. Else, I'm talking about something that you can't see. So let me back up for a moment, and you'll get to see it here in a second. So we've got sort of a rough draft of the front cover art is already done. So I'm just going to wait for it to come up here. So those on the webcast are seeing it right away, and now on Facebook Live it's coming up. So apologies again. I thought I had screen sharing turned on, and obviously now we do. So here we go. Let's start over. Fortress Europa, you're all familiar with it, from Avalon Hill, John Edwards. Very popular design. And so obviously what we're doing here, as far as the designer signature edition approach, no, we're not changing the game really at all. We're not messing with it. We're not saying this is all broken, we're gonna change it. We're here again, like with African Campaign, we're gonna honor the original design. And we're taking the Avalon Hill edition version to work off of. So you'll see the details here that I have on screen. It's again somewhat supersized, so instead of a single map, it's a map and a half. The overall measurement is a map board. When you join the maps together, it's a map and a half. It's about 36 by 34 inches in size. I don't have the map to show yet. The map's being worked on right now. You know, larger counters, as you can see here, we're going with the larger counters, of course, because that's what we do. We supersize everything. The developer of this project is Randy Heller. A lot of you probably know Randy Heller. He's got a lot of experience with certain Avalon Hill titles. For example, he's active with WBC and tournament play. So Randy Heller, just by way of background, Randy was the answer man for Avalon Hill for all those years for Fortress Europa. So he would be the one that would answer all the rules questions that would come in from people, you know, via mail, probably in the day before email was doing much. So Randy Heller's got a wealth of experience, you know, hundreds of hours of playing the game and answering everybody's questions about the game. So basically, we've got over 10 years of official Q&A that he's had to address in his responsibilities when he was aligned with Avalon Hill for that edition of the game. So all the Q&A and all the clarifications on all the errata are being incorporated into this new edition. Also, Randy's come up with a new and succinct invasion sequence for the game to help that along. And again, as I mentioned, we don't like to mess with the original designer's intent, John Edwards, of what the game really is. So you're going to have the game intact with these enhancements and all these clarifications, but we will have a section of rules, which we're calling optional rules. And these are really the rules that Randy has come across and talking to other experts or veterans, let me call them veterans of the game, who have played the game a lot. Maybe they had questions about certain rules in the game. Maybe we should have had some house rules to account for this historically, etc. So we're not going to touch the standard game. We're not going to mess with the standard game, but consider it a bonus addendum section to Fortress Europa that will have some bonus materials, some optional rules that will provide for the game, as well as, you know, some revised and balanced scenarios. And then to bring it all together, Randy's going to be providing extensive developer notes, so you know exactly what enhancements were made and why those enhancements were made for the game, basically. So again, that's the game we have. That's one of the projects I've got going on right now. Again, sort of along the lines of African Campaign by John Edwards. Now we're doing Fortress Europa, and I'll get more graphics on the website as they become available. And I hope it's something you're going to be interested in. It's one of those really, really classic games. A lot of you probably have it already, and look forward to getting it out shortly. So that's one of our new pre-orders that we're announcing tonight. And as I mentioned, we've got one more pre-order announcement to go still. So let me go and turn that page on, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm just going to the page now, and we're going to enable this page, and then you'll all be able to see it with me, but right now it's turned off. So we're going to turn it on so we can do a true unveiling. And it's just saving now. So I'm going to go now, and I'm still obviously screen sharing, so you're going to see me go to that page now. So let's go see what the other pre-order announcement. So this is our third pre-order announcement for tonight that we're going to. We've already had SCHUTZTRUPPE, and we've had Fortress Europa, and now let's talk about Vance von Boris. And I believe Vance is online, or Vance was checking in online tonight as well. So we've worked with Vance recently. We did a designer signature edition of 2 games that he did, Drive on Damascus and Bloody Karen. And those two titles were put together in one box, and that was Forgotten Legions. So Forgotten Legions has done extremely well. We're really happy with it. People have really given us a big thumbs up. You know, there's no really errata with the game. What's interesting about Forgotten Legions by Vance is that he really wanted a second swing at the bat. So it's not just, say, a reprint and fixing some errata in the game. The game was changed quite a bit. It was really advanced and taken to the next level. So, you know, whole new treatment for both topics and sharing the same common rules booklet. So both games shared the same common game system in Forgotten Legions, and Vance really took a new look at the game. And that was somewhat of a departure for us for a designer signature edition, which a designer can definitely decide. You know, Vance came in and said, look, I want to really do something new with these two games. I don't want to just try to clean them up. I want to really have a chance to improve them. So that's the history on Forgotten Legions. So now let's talk about Decision at Catherine. I'm curious, how many of you are familiar with that title? So on Facebook or on the webcast, I'm curious how many of you are familiar with this title, Decision at Catherine. It was a very popular 3W Wargamer magazine release. It later came out as a boxed edition, also from 3W. It also came out in Japan. I have the Japanese version myself. I'm a huge fan, by the way, of this game. This is one of my favorite games that Vance has ever designed. Decision at Catherine. Just always loved the game, loved the topic, loved the variable axis victory conditions that could change. You really didn't know what they would be. So very dramatic game. And what Vance has decided with this game, which is very interesting, so this is part of the Battles for North Africa series. So Vance has done several games, not just this one, but 5 or 6 other games, Hellfire Pass, O'Connor's Offensive. He did a lot of titles based on this game system, you know, that were done after, Decision at Catherine was first produced. So what Vance has done, and I've detailed this for you on the product page. So if you scroll down on the product pre-order page, you'll get more information about the game. Of course, it's designer signature edition again. So it's super size. It's 2 full maps, about 2 full-size maps, 5 8-inch counters, of course, fits very comfortably, much like we did with Forgotten Legions, Vance's game Forgotten Legions. But what he's done here is he's updated the game. So if you keep in mind that there were several games released after Decision at Catherine, so the series evolved with his later releases. So what Vance has done is it's Decision at Catherine with those evolved rules from later editions that he did, but also he's now updating the game yet again. You know, this is a fresh look for him. So as a starting point, he took the latest version of the rules that was published, 15 years ago, or maybe 5 or 10 years after this game was first published. So he's taken those updates, but now he's also done an additional upgrade to the game. So you'll see we have over 10 bullet points here of all the enhancements that Vance is doing for Decision at Catherine. And what's really exciting about this is we're all in for the Battles for North Africa series. So this will now be the new jumping off point for the other games that were already published, Battles for North Africa series. So you're going to see those other games coming in the future. But we're starting here with a fresh slate, with the updated rules, with the additional new design rules that Vance is adding now. So we've got updated order of battle. Notice for this game, we're adding 3 additional scenarios. So besides the standard game, which was basically the entire game, it was 1 campaign game. Vance has added a nice intro scenario. There's a game that starts at a midpoint of the game as well. And then there's one that's another battle near the end. So you've got 3 additional scenarios besides the campaign game that are now provided. He's adding some new optional rules to the game for mountain units, for certain unit reinforcements, allied artillery concentrations, and also modeling the significant allied command problems that the Allies experienced when the Germans launched their offensive. So again, and then he's also simplifying some of the rules as well and streamlining some of the rules. So it's not just adding Chrome, but it's also Vance pulling back and consolidating certain rules to really make it playable as well. So I'm particularly really excited about this game. It's scheduled for release second quarter of next year. So sometime between April and June. And we don't have the box. We haven't started the artwork yet. So this is just a placeholder image. Obviously, we'll get to the box cover first, and we'll be sure to post it. Then we'll have 2 full map sheets of the game, the 5/8-inch counters, nice order of appearance cards. Basically, look at Forgotten Legions and look at the quality of that release, and that's what you can expect from Decision at Casserine. So I'm very excited about that release. So again, just to summarize, we've covered a whole lot tonight, and we even have bonus material that's going to be appearing in our recorded session that I'm going to be posting tomorrow, which will include a designer interview with Ross Mortel on the combat game, which is now up for pre-order. So I hope this update was helpful for you. We've released 2 games. We've got 3 games coming out in October. We've got the new release of Paper Wars coming up with MacArthur's Road to Baton, which is a Jack Green game that we've updated. We've got War for the Union coming out, Prelude to the War as well. So we've got some exciting titles in October. We've unveiled 3 new pre-order titles, the brand new SCHUTZTRUPPE game from Dennis Bishop for German East Africa, 1914-1918, with a whole lot of research and rules added to it, but a nice simple footprint with a mounted game map. We've talked about the classic Fortress Europa is coming back in the designer signature edition style. And lastly, obviously, we talked about Decision at Casserine from Vance von Boris. And then we'll be keeping Vance busy with other titles in his series. So with that, I'm going to stop here unless there's some new questions. So let me just check the Q&A. So yes, Vance, John Allison was asking that, when does Air Assault on Crete and Malta get the same designer signature edition treatment? You know, that's a really good question. I haven't specifically looked at that game yet, to be honest. There's a very sad story with Avalon Hill because I would jump on games like The Longest Day. You probably think I'm crazy because it's such a big game, but there's certain titles I would love to do from a project standpoint. One is The Longest Day, but when Hasbro purchased Avalon Hill, and more importantly, when Wizards of the Coast acquired Hasbro, there were quite a few game titles that went into the coffers of Wizards of the Coast. I've actually talked to corporate at Wizards of the Coast about getting permission to do reprint, license rights to certain games. So to be honest with you, they answered back, it's not even worth our lawyers' time to talk to you because the money is so small. Look at the market they're in with the Magic the Gathering and everything else. And you know the decimal point and the number of zeros is quite different in their segment of the gaming industry compared to ours. So unfortunately, Wizards of the Coast is not interested in talking to anybody about all the titles that they have under their roof. So we're not able to really pursue those. And I have an inkling that Air Assault on Crete and Malta falls under that category. So we'd have to come up with something creative. We'd have to probably talk to Vance. If it's true, we'd have to talk to Vance about, you know, the game would have to look obviously a bit different than that game. So how do we balance out that classic design without IP infringement, which would be with Wizards of the Coast Hasbro division. So that's the answer to that question, John. I wish I didn't have to give that answer to you. I would love to work with Vance on that game, but we'll have to see if that will become possible in the future. But there are some other games from Vance that are coming that we're very excited about. One in particular, you guys can probably guess. It's not North Africa World War II, but it's a different historical era. And it's a game that's been published already, which I think for many is one of his most popular game designs. And I'll leave that to you to try to figure out what that game can be for maybe a later broadcast session. So I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Again, keep in mind, we'll have a nicely edited HD version of tonight's broadcast available tomorrow. And we'll be adding the interview with Ross Mortel on that recorded session because he's over in the United Kingdom. I didn't want him to be up at 2 or 3 a.m. talking live. I don't think he would have enjoyed that, and he would have been very tired. So we've done that as a recorded session. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you tomorrow as part of our broadcast number 14. As a reminder, we got Compass Games Expo 2018, our first annual event coming up. It's less than two months away, really. It's going to be beginning of November, 9th through the 12th, coming up that 3-day holiday weekend. So we really hope Veterans Day weekend you'll join us in Connecticut for our Compass Games Expo. We have about 75 people already signed up, quite a few designers, etc. I look forward to meeting you there for those that can be that are on the East Coast and can be there for an extended weekend in November. I want to thank everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the news about these new pre-orders. I hope you'll consider your pledges for those. You can pre-order and pay later. And perhaps we'll have some new pre-orders when I talk to you next time as well. Take care, everybody, and have a great night. Bye-bye.